11 caution flags in this race, Jeff. A few for brake rotor failures. We had Carson Hocevar, Tyler Reddick, Noah Gragson, Bubba Wallace, all with brake rotor failures. What did you make of that? And I mean, with spec parts now, essentially, with the next gen essentially being a vendor supplied car, could that be traced to whoever is supplying the brake rotors in this instance?
Well, so I will assume that this was not a vendor problem. I'm going to assume that this isn't some sort of rash of bad parts. This is the kind of racetrack that you have those problems where what happens is you have very long straights at Gateway, and you have really high braking because the corners have a really tight radius. And so it's the worst case scenario. As you go down the straights, you are on the straights long enough where the vanes in the rotor spinning sucks air into the rotor, pushes it out through the center of the rotor, or the edges of the rotor rather, and that's what cools the rotor. Well, the longer you go down that straightaway, the more cooling that you get. And then as you drive into the corner, you apply a lot of brake, and so you generate a ton of heat all at once on a rotor that's just cooled all the way down the straightaway. So this is the kind of racetrack that we have had these kind of problems in the past. Now, you take and put the small spoiler on the car that we had this year versus last year, and now the car doesn't slow as much. So you have a situation where the driver is probably going faster down the straightaway. He has to use the brake more because you don't have as much drag. The air isn't slowing the car down. So now you're spiking the heat to the rotor even more. Right? So you have this worsening of condition where you have massive heat all at once on a cool rotor, lap after lap after lap. And that's when we see rotors fail historically in our sports history. So I would imagine it has more to do with that than the actual part. And having said that, we're going to New Hampshire, which has a very similar situation where you apply a lot of brake all at once. I don't think as much as here. People would try to compare it to Phoenix, but turn one braking at Phoenix is not as excessive. So this probably of the racetracks we have is the worst case scenario. Going to Pocono could be an issue, but you know that could be an issue. But you don't brake as much into Pocono turn, the way that you do turn one, but not turn three. So you don't have as much excessive brake heat. So I think that this is probably worst case scenario. And we haven't really seen this issue until we went to this racetrack. So I think it's a track specific thing. I'd be a little concerned going to New Hampshire, be a little concerned at Pocono, but I don't think those two are as bad as where we just were.
So maybe more just driver team setup type thing, like where they can modulate it and figure out a way to make it better.
I would think that how can you find a way to not cool the rotor as much? You know what I mean? I think that would be the conversation that we would, if I was running a race team, that would be the conversation we would be having. It wouldn't be to try to keep the heat out of it. It would be the opposite, because the driver needs the performance of great braking. He needs that performance. I wouldn't try to take that away. You might have to. That might be the only solution, but that wouldn't be my first option. The first option would be, how can we keep from cooling it so much on the straights?
Hi, I'm Parker Kligerman. For more access like this from Pit Road, be sure to click and subscribe to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube channel.